All right, back with Dr. Bill Deagle, MD, and Dr. True Ott, PhD, ND. All right, we're talking about the Spanish flu, the Mexican Spanish flu, but let's just drop Mexican, folks. This is, boy, I just really love the analogy you put out there, the steamer trunk with all the tags of its former destinations. This is 1918 influenza with a new suit of clothes, perhaps some eyewash, and a little bit of a paint job on it. And let's watch it run. Let's watch where it goes. All right, let's revisit that question, Bill, and have both of you respond to this. And I must say that Dr. Doyle has been on this for years, warning what would happen in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And the answer is the first and most important cog in the defense against a pandemic would be wiped out or virtually made inoperable in short order. Bill, tell us a little bit more.
What will happen, and people need to know this, we've done war games on this, the government's fully aware. In fact, I'm going to just give a statement here by the Canadian Ottawa Citizen that was published actually just later this afternoon. And it says, based on the law of averages and science of virology, experts agree another influenza pandemic is inevitable. Of course, it's because they're going to create it. The fact is that they say now that it's, quote, started possibly in Mexico. There's no, quote, head start to have 3 months to make vaccine, et cetera, which, of course, we know vaccines have to be genetically accurate.
Yep.
If they were going to work at all, and we know they don't work. And the fact is, when you're vaccinating, and I just got a report here from Alexander S. Jones, one of our NIH whistleblowers, and he's quite correct in his email, that in fact, when you give vaccines like the swine flu vaccine, you give the virus new genetic information and new spare parts, so you create new recombinants immediately. So this is going to possibly brew by giving more vaccine in the midst of an epidemic, which wouldn't work even if the vaccine could work for a couple of weeks.
This makes the virus smarter and more adaptable.
More genetic possibility to even create new substrains.
Sure. Yep. All right, we're going to lose our healthcare workers, our first responders. Bill mentioned the police, absolutely.
Right.
The fear that this country is so primed for a fear epidemic now. Talk about pandemic. Let's talk about an epidemic of fear. People are going to flip out.
Well, they don't do anything, and the fact is that we did a simulation at the Federal Center. We worked with Special Forces, worked with Operation Top Off in Dark Winter in the late 90s with Reserve Admiral Hughes, the hazmat teams in Colorado. And what we discovered, and this is very shocking, is that, number one, we could never activate the EMS system quickly enough to prevent it from spreading.
Yeah.
And number two, once the virus actually caused a panic, more people died of violence and starvation than they died of the flu.
I say they're going to flip out. There's no question about it. So you're not going to be able to go to the ER, folks. You're not even going to be able to get to your doctor. Forget that. Don't call an ambulance. None will be coming in the event of a massive pandemic. And forget about dialing 911. First of all, cops are not responsible by law to answer any 911 calls. They do it voluntarily to the best of their ability. That's the law, and that's the rule. All right, here's something else for both of you gentlemen. Got this from Dr. Doyle earlier today. She says, "Hello, Jeff. I wonder what the heck the following means. Was the Navy doing some sort of testing on the Mexican border? The swine flu outbreak stinks." She repeated herself there. She says something is very wrong. Here's the quote. I'm going to quote this now. "The unusual strain this year was noticed," said Dr. Ann Schuchat, Director of Respiratory Diseases for the CDC, "only because the agency was trying out a new diagnostic test at a Navy laboratory and doing more testing than usual through a new border infectious disease surveillance project along the Mexican border." So what's the Navy doing here, and what are they doing on the border?
Well, the Navy has a facility in Cairo, and a week and a half ago, one of the parliamentarians in Cairo accused the U.S. naval facility in Cairo of causing a number of young people to be infected with H1N1, H5N1. H5N1 in Egypt. So we're having all these strange circumstances like the Baxter lab here just a short time ago.
Well, the Navy has a lab in Indonesia too, folks. It's a bioweapons lab. Nobody knows much about that. The Indonesians aren't happy about it, but they do. They've got them all over the place.
Right. So what we do know is that, this is my guess, is this is going to put a real scare. And here's what this Canadian report shows that I tell people they really should take this seriously. What they are now talking about is, and this is after Hillary Clinton went to China, and this is a speech that Dr. Truott sent to me some time ago. It's a speech from August 8, 2005 by Mr. Chai Haoshan, Minister of Defense. And Dr. Ott, you can perhaps tell us about this, because now that they're literally doing a controlled demolition of the economy, they're getting ready to start sweeping away some of the population. It's not surprising that they're totally surprised at a potential pandemic. I'm not saying it is yet, but a potential pandemic that's now showing up in a New York prep school as well today, started in Mexico, the trash heap city of 20 million, and that this speech. Tell us about that, Dr. Ott.
Well, yes, indeed. I verified that to be absolutely accurate by a number of my sources. I came out with that back in July of 2008. I published that along with some writings and my PowerPoint presentation on the Chinese connection to this proposed pandemic. Okay, now Shi Haoshan basically outlines to the whole PLA brass, the assembled generals, the long-term plan for China's survival. Again, earlier on Jeff's show, we established the fact that from Peter Navarro's book and others research showing that the Chinese economy, the Chinese environment is not sustainable with the contamination and pollution. And the fact of the matter is, they maybe have 3 or 4 years left before they go into a crash cycle. They must expand, and they've absolutely identified North America as their point of expansion. That means Mexico, America, and Canada. And in his speech, Shi Haoshan explained that it's unfortunate, he said, that we must clean up America, quote, all of a sudden, and we now have the means through a biological weapon to do just that. And he estimated 150 to 200 million Americans must die. But then he explained it's a tragedy, yes, but if 150 million Americans do not die, then 300 or 400 million Chinese must die because of the collapse of their agrarian economy there.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got about 75 students at a New York City prep school who are suffering strange and mysterious influenza. And if that flu is typed to be the same that we're seeing in Texas and California and Mexico, then, Bill, we know this is being helped.
And they're not publishing the information from the Baxter lab or from Biotest.
Nothing.
Alexander S. Jones has been checking to see, and their phone's even off the hook in the Czech Republic.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they're not answering any calls. There's a total blackout of the news on Baxter.
All right, well, that was the Baxter story we covered here about 3-4 weeks ago, I guess, now, something like that.
Right, so they're working hard to start a pandemic. As Henry Kissinger said, America will be disarmed by September. They want to have a pandemic now.
Well, it's one way to take the guns away from people, isn't it? Kill them.
Absolutely. Bullets for bread.
Yeah.
And we'll save you from the evil pandemic if you'll just go to our civil detention camp.
What it is. Be right back with Dr. Bill Deagle, MD, and Dr. A. True Ott, PhD. Okay, we're back, and let's get the latest on the New York prep school. It's a private Catholic school. Here's a little excerpt from a television news story there. I think your ears will pick up several things that are of particular interest, so here we go.
Later.
Now the school's all closed up.
Yeah.
If it's the flu, the question is what kind of flu, and could it be the unique strain suspected in 20 recent deaths? Tests are underway.
It could be a strain we haven't seen before. It could be the regular flu. It could be flu B, which is what happens late in the year. It could be any of those. So we can't really speculate at this point. That's why we were very anxious to get samples to our lab and get them tested, find out what we're dealing with.